Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Bruckner, and we are going to be talking about the Predators. The Preds have a game tonight. Last night's game. I'll get to last night's game because they're both on the road. So when we talk about the Preds on the road, we can talk about last night's game. The Preds definitely played better. And good enough. They played good enough to win. Two minor problems. Not like a minor penalty, but anyhow, we have another game tonight. We played last night in Washington, and tonight we head to Sunrise, Florida. Sunrise. That's where the sun rises. Sunrises in Sunrise, Florida. I don't know. But we head to Florida for a little vacation. To take on the Florida Panthers, last year's Stanley Cup winners, the current Stanley Cup holders. Congratulations, Florida, again. May as well congratulate you now because I'll have to be consoling you later. The Florida Panthers are 9-3-1. At home, they are 3-1-1. They are number one in the Atlantic Division with 19 points, 3 points ahead of Toronto. They won their home and season opener against Boston, then lost 2-1-2, lost and won in overtime, lost again. So they were kind of streaky. Lost 2-1-2, lost in overtime, won in overtime, then lost. Bouncing around there. But currently they are on a 5-game winning streak. So whatever they were not doing consistently at the beginning of the season, they have righted the ship. Boston, Ottawa, Buffalo, Boston. They had to play Boston. That was one thing I noticed about their schedule is they're playing the same team back-to-back a lot. Kind of get to that a little bit. I may as well talk about it now because the current homestand, they're Nashville tonight, then Saturday, Philadelphia. Then they play 2 against New Jersey in Florida, and then they play Winnipeg back-to-back, but once in Florida and once in Winnipeg. And then later on in their schedule, it's kind of the same thing. They will play the same team. Here we go, Tampa Bay. They play Tampa Bay in consecutive games on consecutive days, away and at home. Now, granted, it's just Florida, so it's not that big of a deal. But I think, the Winnipeg, at least there's 2 days, 3 days, Saturday to Tuesday, 3 days. 2 days between, but yeah, Tampa Bay. And then Anaheim, home and away with Anaheim, Saturday, Tuesday. Just weird. I can't recall seeing that a lot. I don't know why. They did before this game. They were in Finland to play Dallas, so they played 2 games against Dallas while they were over there on a Friday and Saturday. It's not sure how that's. I'm not sure how that's getting counted. Whether those are considered home games or away games. There were 2 wins, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4 losses. I don't know. I'm still not sure. But anyway, that their schedule looks a little weird from that standpoint for me. But they are on a 5-game winning streak, which include the 2 in Dallas, 2 in Finland. The other 3 games were on the road. So I guess Finland would be on the road. It has to be a road game, but weird. That's just kind of weird. Anyhow, So they are currently on a 5-game winning streak. They are 6-2 against the Eastern Conference, 3-1-1 against the West, 2-1 against the Central, soon to be 2-2. Primarily, Bobrovsky has been playing in goal, and so most likely we will see Bobrovsky in goal. We did see Saros last night. That surprised me. We could see Saros again tonight. Usually on back-to-back games, you see two different goaltenders. I don't know that much about Saros's mindset. No, when Jonathan Quick was in his prime and starting, he always wanted to play. He didn't want the backup to play. So that doesn't. The coach is the one that makes that decision. So I don't know. I would expect to see Wedgwood in goal tonight for the Preds, but some things you just find out at the last minute. Who was it that? Like we found out kind of at the last minute that Tommy Novak was out last night. So Bobrovsky will be most likely in goal for the Panthers tonight. Sergei Bobrovsky is 6-2-1, and the backup Spencer Knight is 3-1-0. So that's their goaltender situation. Yeah. I'm still thinking about Wedgwood in goal tonight. Excuse me. A few roster changes from last year. Notables not with the team. Center Nick Cousins, unrestricted free agent, signed by Ottawa. New forwards of note. Center Jesper Boquist, unrestricted free agent from Boston. Right wing Mackenzie Entwistle, unrestricted free agent from Chicago. Left wing AJ Greer, unrestricted free agent from Calgary. Left wing Thomas Nosek, unrestricted free agent from New Jersey. Left wing Hunter St. Martin. Left wing Hunter St. Martin from the Medicine Hat Tigers. The Medicine Hat Tigers, Canadian Hockey League, in Medicine Hat, Alberta. Medicine Hat Tigers is not an affiliate of the Florida Panthers. But I thought, Medicine Hat Tigers, that sounds kind of cool. Oh, it's the town's Medicine Hat, so they're just the Tigers from the city. Whatever. This season, for some reason, I'm obsessed with all of the AHL and affiliate teams and stuff like that. I think it's some of the team names are funny. Okay, moving on with roster. Defensemen, notable not with the team. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, unrestricted free agent, signed by Toronto. Josh Mahura, Seattle, unrestricted free agent, signed by Seattle, as well as also going to Seattle, unrestricted free agent, Brandon Montour. New defensemen. They both were with teams and signed, but it wasn't like they were unrestricted free agents or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I'm still learning a lot about the contracts and how things like that work in the NHL, and I find it fascinating, but did not dive into these particular signings. Adam Boquist, I'm assuming, is related to the new center from Boston, but Adam Boquist had been with Columbus Blue Jackets and is signed with Florida, and Nate Schmidt was with Winnipeg and was signed by Florida. Last year's backup goaltender, Anthony Solars, unrestricted free agent, signed by Toronto. And so the Panthers signed Spencer Knight from their AHL Charlotte Checkers, the Charlotte Checkers. So somebody that was in their program, they brought him up. I always liked that when the Kings did that. The Kings for a while were goaltending. It was like a goaltending factory. Quick and Martin Jones, Cristobal Hewitt, just goaltender after goaltender coming up through the ranks, and then coming into the NHL and sitting behind Jonathan Quick for a minute and then going somewhere else. Hated it when Martin Jones went to San Jose. Yeah. A bunch of cheaters. Couture playing the puck from the bench and then not fessing up to it and didn't get called. The refs didn't even call it a penalty. It's on video, dude. Anyhow, moving on. This is not King's Talk. No, that is a different show. That is a different show. I think I can mention the show without getting in trouble. So Spencer Knight coming up from the Charlotte Checkers. Players to note, not going to be tonight. I was wrong about last night about Matt Roy. He did play. Good for him. He had been on injured reserve and I guess got off injured reserve in time to play last night. So good seeing him back on the ice. But we will not be seeing, or probably won't be seeing, left wing Jonah Gadjevich is on injured reserve. He's day to day. And right wing Justin Sourdiff is on injured reserve. So, I mean, potentially, I guess both of them could come off. Day to day sounds a little more likely, but that's all I've got. That's all I got. Okay, stat leaders for Florida. And just as an aside here, when I know that a particular player leads the team in goals, I would assume that the Preds do too. Apparently that got lost on them last night in the first period. We'll get to that. I'm still kind of fuming over that. I had to, my wife was doing, was she grading papers? Doing something to be ready for her high school class today. And so missed the beginning of the game. But I backed it up and showed her this play, and I'm like, look at this. Just typical Predators brain fart. Anyhow, so the stat leaders for Florida, center Sam Reinhart. Maybe I should look up his number because then maybe somebody will pay attention to him. Center Sam Reinhart leads in goals, assists, and points. Let's not let him get in front of the goaltender by himself, okay? He leads the team in goal, assists, and points. 10 goals, 11 assists, and 21 points. Center Carter Verhaeghe, no, that's not right. Leads in shots, 52. Left wing A.J. Greer leads the team in penalty minutes with 20. And center Alexander Barkov and left wing Jonah Gadjevich lead the team in shooting percentage, 33%. Barkov is two goals on 6 shots, and Gadjevich 1 on 3. So not that much shooting, but leading the team in 33%. And time on ice would be defenseman Gustav Forsling, 23 minutes. 23 minutes. He gets more of a break than most of the time on ice leaders. But hey, Panthers are first in their division. Tonight is the Panthers' 14th game of the year. Last year they were 9-4-1 overall. They did go 2-3 to start the season last year. Okay, 2-3. Now granted the Preds went 0-5, but the Panthers, the Stanley Cup champion Panthers, went 2-3 last year to start the season. They were 9-4-1, so it didn't take them long to change course. But they were 9-4-1 after the 14th game of the year, which is tonight is their 14th game of this year. Last season, their 14th game was a 4-3 win over Chicago, so that was at home, similar to this year. And this year they are 9-3-1 overall. Let's get a lot of similarity to next year, and so they'll be 9-4-1 overall after tonight. Ha ha ha! But their records right on track with last season. They seem to be playing well. Tonight is also their 6th game at home. Last year they were 5-1 at home. Their 6th game was a 5-2 win over Carolina. This year they are 3-1-1 so far at home. So they're definitely behind where they were last year at their home record. Tonight, I think mentioned tonight is the first game of a 5-game homestand. They play Philadelphia, then New Jersey twice, and Winnipeg after playing Nashville. They did just play 2 games against Dallas and Finland, winning both of them. And their schedule is a lot of back-to-back games. Already covered that. So that is the Florida Panthers wrapped up in a nutshell. The Nashville Predators are now 4-8-1, 1-2-1 on the road. They are in 8th place in the Central Division, as I said, because there is no 9th. They are still 2 points behind Chicago. Tonight's game is the second of a 2-game road trip. Washington last night was the other game. After tonight, they come home to play the Utah Hockey Club, and then they go 5 on the road. Colorado, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle. So a big trip to the northern parts of things. Colorado, then 3 in Canada and Seattle. Tonight is also the Preds' 14th game of the year. Last year, the Preds were 5-9 in their first 14 games. Their 14th game was a 5-7 loss to Arizona. This year, they are 4-8-1 overall. Tonight is the Preds' 5th on the road. Last season, they were 1-4 in 5 road games. The 5th game was a 2-4 loss to Seattle. This season, they are 1-2-1 so far on the road. Players of note, Tommy Novak is out. Stat leaders, left wing Philip Forsberg leads the team in goals with 6. Center Ryan O'Reilly leads the team in assists with 7. Those two, Forsberg and O'Reilly, lead the team in points, 10. Defenseman Roman Josi leads the team in shots, 57, and time on ice at 25:49. With Tommy Novak out last night, center Juuso Parssinen got the nod, and so he now leads the team in shooting percentage with 33%. He got a goal last night. He has 3 shots on goal this season. He's only played in 5 games, so about a third of the season. He's 1 for 3 on shooting. Center Gustav Nyquist has played a little bit more. He's played all 13 games. He's second in shooting percentage with 26%, 4 on 15. 4 on 15, and I think I heard the announcers say last night, I haven't really been looking at plus minus, but I think they said Nyquist was the only player to be positive that had played all the games. That is no longer the case. The Preds no longer have any player that has a positive plus minus. Left wing Zachary Leroux and defenseman Mark Delgazzo are both at 0. Leroux, hurrah. I'm just happy to be here. Okay, so yeah, there you go. And defenseman Jeremy Lauzon leads the team in penalty minutes with 17. They got a penalty last night to keep that lead. I don't know if there's an award for that. So that's your Preds wrapped up. Okay, Preds stats on the road. Currently, they are 1-2-1 on the road. They lost their last road game last night in Washington, 2-3. In that game, Juuso Parssinen scored early, and then Preds left Connor McMichael alone in front of the net. And so he tied it up. Again, why pay attention to him? He's only leading the team with tied with Ovechkin in goals. Now he has 8. So does Ovechkin. They both scored last night. But the Preds scored. The Preds got the first goal of the game. They scored. Good emotion, good passing and whatnot. Good play, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then they came a little bit later, not that long, they came down the ice and as a unit turned around and looked back up the ice. I think that there were 2 Caps that came down with them, and then this guy was trailing them. I think there was 4. I think maybe all 4, all 5 Preds were in the defensive zone. The puck went into to behind the net and then came up I guess if you're the goaltender, the left side, and one defenseman went with the Caps player who was behind the net. The other 3 followed the one guy around while Connor McMichael is standing by himself in front of Juuso Saros. So you got 3 Preds following the puck, and then that guy passes it to Connor. He's by himself, and it's like, holy cow. Okay, again, I've never played hockey, but I have played a lot of basketball. I've played a lot of basketball, and competitively. Not, nobody ever paid me to play. Nobody never paid not to either. But you come down the court and figure out who's where, right? The last thing you want is some guy standing by himself under the net, right? It's like just a nice little lob and then a layup with everybody, with all the defense right there. But that's basically what happened last night. If Saros would have made the goal, it would have been a highlight for him. But he didn't. He didn't make the save. And so, there you go. So the Preds got a lead and then had a big brain fart like 30 seconds later or something like that. And so the first period wound up being tied. Then in the second period, the Caps scored late with the Preds tying it up 31 seconds later. So again, the Preds came back. Preds played well last night. I think the second goal reminded me of that too. I think there were 2 goals last night that I thought, holy cow, the Preds defense just, defense mean overall defense, not picking on the defensemen on the ice at that particular time, although it is more of their job when there's somebody in front of the goaltender. But the forwards have to play defense too, so the defense kind of had a couple of brain farts, which led to 2 goals. So last night's loss could have been a win if they'd have maintained concentration during that particular time and paid attention to who was on the ice and where were they. So, but anyway, the Caps scored late in the second. The Preds tied it up 31 seconds later. So again, the second period ended tied. First period tied, second period tied, and then the only scoring in the third was roughly halfway through by Washington's Alex Ovechkin. So, all that being said, the Preds did get the first goal of the game, which is the first time on the road they have gotten the first goal of the game. They tied 2 periods and lost 1. Last year, when the Preds were 2-2 on the road when tying both the first and the second periods, When they tied the first, they were 8-6. When they tied the second, they were 6-3. So there you go. 8-6 when tying the first last year, 6-3 when tying the second, 2-2 on the road when tying both the first and the second. So then I decided to see what happened last year when they lost the third period, and that happened 30 times. Out of 82 games plus 6, so 80, kind of counting the playoffs, 88 games last year. So 30 times they lost the third period. I didn't look up to see how many times they won or tied. That would have been kind of an interesting comparison. But 30 times they lost the third period. 25 times that they lost the third period, they lost the game. 15 of those were on the road. Of the 5 wins, when they lost the third period, 4 of those were at home and 1 was on the road. So losing the third period doesn't turn out very good. The 30 times they lost the third period last year, they were 5-25. Yeah. So. Oh boy. Okay. Anyway, also when the game was tied after 2 periods, not necessarily the 2 periods before had been tied, which is what I was talking about earlier, but if it's just tied after 2 periods, last year on the road they were 7-4, and at home 4-4, and overall 11-8. So far as the first goal goes, the 4-8-1 Predators are 4-9 in getting the first goal. It's funny looking at how their record and getting the first goal matches, although not strongly with the result. But it is funny how it is matching it. They're 1-3 when they get it. They did get it last night, so they're 0-1. First time they've gotten it on the road. So they're 1-2 at home and 0-1 when they get it. 3-5-1 when they do not. So 2-4 at home and 1-1 on the road. So whether they get it or not, they have 50% less wins. So it's not really too much of a determinant. Last year, after 14 games, they were 5-9 in getting the first goal. So they're 4-9 through 13 last year, and this year and last year they were 5-9, 3-4 when getting it, 2-1 at home and 1-2 away, 2-5 when not, 1-3 at home and 1-3 away. That doesn't add up. 7-14. It's got to be 1-3 at home, 1-2 away. Okay. Anyhow, moving on. So 5-9 last year, getting the first goal. Although at home 2-1 when they got it. So at home when they got it, well, it's still only not that many games. But overall, last year it was at home. It was a 3-1 advantage. If they got the first goal, more likely than not, they would win the game. The winning goal overall on the road out of 4 games is the percentages are 0, 25, 50, and 25. So 50% of the time it's been in the third period. Since the Preds have only won 1 game on the road, 100% of the time it's been the third period. When the opponents win, 33% in the second, third, and overtime. Last season on the road, overall, 41% of the time it was in the second period, 32% in the third. But as far as the opponents, it was 0% in the first and shootout. So the opponents never won a shootout on the road against the Preds, and they never won the game, never got the game-winning goal in the first period. But 65% of the time, they got it in the second. The Preds would get the winning goal 42% of the time in the third period and 25 in the second. So those numbers look pretty significant. 65% of the time, the opponent would get the winning goal in the second period. So, special teams play. I'm still working on the special teams document. Spent a lot of time on it yesterday. I'll probably spend more time with it today. Maybe not, but I guess I'll do the Utah podcast tomorrow. I might have to back off and do one podcast a week. Got other things I really need to be working on, and this seems to be taking up a little bit too much of my time. Once I start looking at some of these numbers, I just find it's kind of fascinating. Special teams, the Preds have 12, what I would consider 12 special team goals versus 3 for the opponents. And special teams are anything that's not 5-on-5. I'm not counting yet empty net or overtime 6-on-5. Well, I guess that's the same thing. Empty net, counting empty net yet, but on the power play, it's 9-3. The Preds have 9 goals to the opponent's 3. The Preds have 1 shorthanded goal to the opponent's none. At even strength, 4-4, 3-on-3, the Preds have 2 goals. And the stat that I like to track is what I call the just after goal, and that is the circumstance that like last night there were the Preds got a just after goal. Well, no, they didn't. Let me start over. So just after goal, when you have a power play, and say you score a goal not during the power play, but shortly after or just after, let's say, then I think that you can make something of an argument that the fact that you were on a power play gave rise to that opportunity and that goal being scored. I look up to a minute. I think a minute's too long, really, but it makes my math easier and when I'm trying to do this kind of things. But you can see that if, say, you're on a power play and you're in the zone and you've got a lot of momentum and you're playing well and you score a goal 3, 5, 10 seconds after the power play is over, that the momentum that was generated during the power play enabled that goal to be scored. So just after goals, and then the other way of looking at it is, say you're shorthanded, and nothing got scored, and then just as that power play or your penalty kill ends, you score a goal, and so those are 2 scenarios that I'm looking at, and both of those 2 scenarios, the just after and the just after shorthand, the Preds have 1 goal in both of those categories, and the opponents have 2. In both of those categories. That's just something else that I'm looking at that it's kind of interesting. There's not going to be a lot of goals in those, but it could be telling. I think probably the more interesting thing about the just after goals, especially the just after shorthanded, is if in a game that you lose, and maybe lose by 1, right? So if those kind of it's hard to it's hard to come up with quite of a pat explanation as to why a just after shorthanded goal would be why that would be a determinant, but I think it's indicative that the team was wrapped up in trying to get the penalty power play and maybe got caught off guard by the guy coming out of the penalty box. Could have overextended themselves. I'm seeing that a lot of these special teams goals are happening in the second period. And I was trying to get my head around these numbers, and what I really need to do is finish building the spreadsheet out. So I instead of continuing to bang my head against the wall trying to get the numbers right for this podcast, I said just let it go. You can see how well I let it go, and and finish building the spreadsheet, and then you'll have the numbers, and you won't have to do so many sorts and filters and stuff like that, and wonder if your numbers are right. If you get the spreadsheet built, and then get your summary, and then know what you're looking for, then I can have it, and I won't have to just guess and sit here and stare at it and go, I don't think that's right, or tell y'all about stats that are just wrong. I hate it when I do that. I know I do that every now and then. I did once on this podcast. I don't know how that those particular numbers got off, but anyhow. So yeah, a lot of special teams in the second period, which also was interesting on my contention, at least last year. Maybe not so much this year, but definitely last year, that the second period at home, the Preds played was their worst period of the entire season. That they were better in the second period on the road than they were in the second period at home, and all, the first and third periods, overtime shootouts, all that on the road was better. So there's something. Last season there was something going on with the Preds in the second period, and it's kind of interesting to me that I'm looking at this and I'm going, wow, this year there's a lot of special teams play that's resulting in goals in the second period. So I'll have that. I'll have that data at my fingertips probably next week. Probably by next week. It depends on what the weather looks like this weekend. If it's a rainy weekend, I might have it by Monday. Okay, so anyway, so that's the special teams. The Preds are definitely scoring more than their opponents. And as far as November goes, last year the Preds were 7-6 on the road in November. They were 7-6 in November of last year, 5-3 at home, and 2-3 on the road. So that's the Preds stats on the road. Tonight's matchup. Tonight is the only game that we get to play in Sunrise, Florida, at least in the regular season. We will play a home game against the Panthers in mid-February. Last year, we played the Panthers twice, and the visiting team won both. In Florida, mid-January last season, it was 4-1, and sorry, my notation got me messed up. And then in mid-March, in Tennessee, the score was 3-0. Should have reversed that. The winning team got the first goal in both, which was also kind of interesting. So the visiting team won both games last year, both games with Florida. Again, 2 is not that much in its last season. I think last season the Preds beat the Caps both times, and they could have started that trend last night, but chose not to. And so against Florida last year, the third period in Nashville was the only period won by Florida. So the third period in Nashville was the only. That had to be 1-4. I have that backwards. It's got to be backwards. Florida Oh, Florida won in mid-January. No, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, sorry. Gotta standardize my notes, and then I need to understand what my standardization is. That's the problem. Is I come up with these abbreviations, and then I sit down here and start talking, and don't know what the abbreviation means. That's a problem. But anyway, so the third period in Nashville was the only period in those two games that Florida won. And the other two periods in that game were both ties, 0-0 and 1-1. The winning goal was scored early in the third period, and then there were two late empty netters. So the 4-1 win by Florida was a close game. So they got the first goal in the second period, the first goal of the game in the second period, but the Preds tied it up, and then they got a goal early in the third, and the Preds hung in there to two late empty netters to make it a 4-1 goal. But that was the only period won by Florida in both games. In Florida, the Preds won all three periods, scoring one goal in each of them. Forsberg got two goals and one in a power play and an assist, 2 goals and an assist for Forsberg, and Nyquist got the first goal of the game and an assist. The loss for the Panthers was third. It was the third in a 4-game losing streak. And for the Preds, it was the win was fourth of a 6-game winning streak. So the Florida came in on a losing streak and continued, and Preds were in the middle of a winning streak and kept that going. And the game won by the Preds. So tonight, Florida is starting a 5-game homestand. So no result yet. They play Pittsburgh on Saturday. They did win their last 2 games against Dallas and Finland, 2 games, and then 3 road games before that, the Rangers, Islanders, and Sabres. They did lose their last game in Sunrise, Florida, to Minnesota, 1-5. The Preds are on a 2-game road trip. Tonight is the last game in that road trip. Last night, loss to Washington was the other game in this road trip. So that is your matchup. I expect we'll see Bobrovsky and Wedgwood. I don't know. I would expect to see Wedgwood, but I have this sneaky feeling we're going to see Saros. I think we'd probably see the same lineups. I think the Preds played well last night. I think overall, the couple of brain farts, but they're working through these issues. So could see some differences. It all kind of depends on if how this back-to-back works out. They might play a few other people because of being a back-to-back situation. But overall, I expect tonight's game to be a tight one, just like last night. I was not optimistic yesterday. I am optimistic at some point the Preds will turn everything around, but I was not optimistic that it would be in time for last night's game. It will be interesting to see on such a short turnaround between two very good teams to see how they do play tonight. I think that tonight's game will be a marker from that standpoint as to how the season is going to go. Again, I have full faith that the team is going to turn it around, and they are going to be playing some excellent hockey at some point in time. I just hope it's before the 82nd game. All right. So that is the podcast in a nutshell. Thank you for listening. I am Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.